Hey, this is Mark from Pods Like Us, the show where we help you to find your next podcast addiction. And you're listening to Trimming the Musical Fat, a show where Paul and Stephen tell you all you need to know about and more about the music that you love.
What's that smell?
Oh, that would be me. I've been swimming in raw sewage. I love it. I love it. That's the signal. Let's go. Do it.
Welcome to Trimming the Musical Fat. I'm Stephen Nicholson and I'm delighted you're joining us for this episode of the podcast. Paul and I were lucky enough to catch up with Sam Wiles, who is the host of the excellent Paul McCartney podcast, Paul or Nothing. So in our conversation we found out a little bit more about the genesis of Paul or Nothing and also delved deep into Sam's Macca to find out his favourite Paul McCartney albums, what he thought of the recent McCartney 321 TV show, and what he's looking forward to seeing in the upcoming Peter Jackson directed Get Back.
You, of course, present the excellent Paul or Nothing podcast. Could you tell our listeners a bit about what the podcast is all about?
Firstly, Your Honour, I object to it being called an excellent podcast. It's all right. It's pretty good. You've got to be pretty self-deprecating in this podcasting game, haven't you, really? But, it's the place to get all of your Paul all of the time.
That's right.
Essentially, the main thrust of the show is that I'm not a McCartney completionist. Back when I was first thinking of doing a podcast after my Tom Waits podcast, Down in the Hole, went into hiatus, I thought, I'll do McCartney, but I've never listened to Driving Rain, so maybe I'll bring that into the formula. And it's the idea that I'm listening to this music, as you may have mentioned earlier, largely for the first time. Of course, I am becoming more of a completionist as I go along, but largely, the show is me experiencing Macca media as a youngish 5th to 6th generation fan, giving my 2 cents. And as with any solo Beatles podcast, I am forced to, due to the algorithms and due to what's popular in the milieu at the time, to touch on Beatles content as well, including the upcoming Let It Be documentary, where I'm going to try and do an episode a day, which is going to be pretty tough for me, considering that I spend about a week writing each script for each episode, including Granddude's Green Submarine, which most people will just say, yeah, it was all right. But, it's mostly just me trying to be as serious as possible. It's quite... I'd like to say acerbic, but it's probably just more Burkish, really. It's just me making silly jokes, swearing too much, making too many crude sexual comments, and just try not to sound as neuroatypical as possible.
Sam, how long has the podcast been running now, your podcast?
Too long. I mean, especially for the amount of downloads I get. It seems that every one of the Beatles podcasts seems to peak at between 1,000 and 2,000 downloads, which is a shame, really, because it doesn't imply that the Beatles fandom isn't there, just that the majority of their fans don't really use podcasts or listen to them all that much. I try and cultivate a younger audience, I guess.
Yeah.
Including yourselves, obviously.
Of course.
I mean, I've been doing it for about half a decade now, and my mother still doesn't know quite what a podcast is, sadly. It's like radio, Mom, but on the internet.
There you go. That's it in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah. So do you do it live? No. It's one of those things that it's probably one of my most proudest things to talk about because it's actually a success in my life. But you definitely don't talk to a girl about it until the third date. You know what I mean? So, what's your podcast about? Is it about true crime? No. Is it about current modern music that I can relate to? Oh God, here we go. Have you ever heard of Big Day by Paul McCartney?
No.
From the unreleased Phil Ramone sessions. Because if you haven't, do I have a story for you?
Yeah. It's you need to find the right kind of woman to be impressed by doing a podcast. It's like me with my wife. Yeah, I'm away to record an episode. Okay. You'll never get asked about on what topic.
How did it go?
How did it go? And this, that, the other. It's like, yeah, whatever.
No, I mean, I do find myself trying to trick everyone in my life into being a Paul McCartney fan. Whether it's if me and a girl do a mixed playlist, it's me trying to insert as many non-obviously McCartney songs into the playlist as possible, or putting on Frozen Japanese or Check My Machine at a party just to kind of get the general air. I mean, The Fireman is a very good one to trick people into liking Paul McCartney, but then they'll just say, "Nah, I'm more of a Killing Joke Youth kind of fan," and they kind of stick it to you. When I worked at a hotel once, they had a Spotify playlist that played all over the hotel, and once a week on the Friday shift, I'd add another Paul McCartney song. And it took them about 3 months to realize, like, God, there's a lot of Beatles and Paul McCartney playing. And you know, I've never heard of Ue Soleil or Lunchbox Odd Socks before. And the head of the company's come in, and all I can hear is bum, bum, ba-dum, ba-dum, bum.
Oh, that sounds very interesting. What's that?
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reggae.
Yeah. Is there a carnival in town? Because someone's saying it's theirs. Yeah.
Oh, good tune. Good tune.
Yeah.
I think the most obscure one I got on there was It's Not On. It's another one from the Pipes of Peace bonus tracks. It's the one that went on to, it got changed into the Anti-Heroin Project song.
Oh, Simple As That.
Simple As That. Yeah.
Yeah.
The original one, which isn't the kind of lame duck.
Yeah, one. The original.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I can't believe I did that. I should have got sacked sooner, really.
You could have put something a little bit controversial on the playlist. You could have kind of hastened your exit.
Yeah, no. Let's just put on
Give Ireland Back to the Irish.
No, I actually went to a Catholic school, and it was just literally me and all Irish people. So that is one McCartney song that most people and parents of friends actually know and do kind of like. But there is a version of the song sung by an Irish band, and I forget their name now. I do apologise, but they sing "Great Britain, you're not tremendous." And that's the version that people prefer. I seem to recall.
Yeah. Funnily enough, it got to number 1 in Spain. Apparently, but I don't know if that's something to do with Barcelona and Catalonia or something. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Give Catalan back to the
Catalans.
Don't
General
make
Franco.
them take Estrella away.
España, you are tremendous.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And I'm sure we can make much more controversial jokes than that. So let's just.
Yes, I'm sure we can. Yeah.
The mind boggles.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Give Australia back to the Aborigines.
Yeah,
they probably won't take it away because
give America back to the Native Americans. Yeah.
To the First Peoples. What are we calling them these days? Yeah.
If you had to pick anyone to guest on your show, other than me and my brother, of course, today, who would it be?
You two will come on at some point. I've already been thinking of things, probably something to do with Off the Ground and the B-sides for that.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Fun. I do like that you guys started your podcast with the most generic Beatles question ever of how do we fix the White Album. I thought that was just really, really funny. It's the Beatles bloody White Album. Shut up. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go controversial.
Yeah.
One of the greatest double albums of all.
Ooh, are we
Single.
going to take Revolution 9 off? God, that's a controversial choice, isn't it? Oh my
Yeah, the song that's not really a song that's 10 minutes long. Well, okay, let's take it off.
That's one of the top songs to pick just to establish yourself as a Beatles Uber fan, though. I remember when we saw the bootleg Beatles. No, not the bootlegs. We saw the Mersey Beatles, who are better than the bootleg Beatles.
Are they really?
Because their Ringo actually sounds like Ringo.
All right, very good.
Yeah. Thomas went over the hill, then he went under the hill. They would say, any requests? And all four of us at once shouted, Revolution 9! And the McCartney just went, number 9, number 9. And I was like, are they actually going to do it? And then I get a little bit older and a little bit slower. And then he became naked. Yeah.
But apparently that's David Bowie's favourite Beatles song.
Yeah.
That wasn't really.
Wasn't there a song that Bowie said Lennon or McCartney should have released a weird song as a single at the time in their solo years? Or it might be.
I think it was. Do you know what it was? It was Reception from Back to the Egg.
Reception from Back to the Egg. Yeah,
that's what it was. Yeah.
Straight to number 1 in the bargain bin. Yeah,
I don't think it would be.
I wouldn't be surprised if he said, "What's the new Mary Jane?" Just.
Oh yeah.
Just to say the most opposite of what would be commercial.
Most contrary thing you can say.
Yeah. The laughing gnome.
Yeah.
My God.
So who would you like to have on your show, Sam? If you could think of somebody you'd like.
Is it going to be the obvious answer, Paul McCartney?
So this is the thing. I'm going to get this off my chest, not on my show, because I don't want to piss off any of my paying fans. But one of my biggest pet peeves is when I ask my fans on Twitter who they'd like me to have on the show, and then they say Paul McCartney. I'm like, are you dense? Are you dense? Like, Paul doesn't even appear on the good popular podcast, let alone my show, which has 2 listeners, with one of them being my best friend Tom. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, Paul does not want me asking him questions about his and Linda's sex life. You know,
you never know.
You never know. I mean, Paul, how often did you eat at home? If you know what I mean.
He might show you the videos.
Yeah. Like, I love that episode of The Sopranos where they imply that going down on a woman's like a feminine, weak thing to do. And I'm like, these guys know nothing about women. Oh, my God. But at the moment, I'm starting to court Julian Mendelsohn, Carl Davis, and Youth. I want to get them on the show at some point.
Cool.
But the real ultimate guest is Denny Lane.
Yeah.
I want to get all the surviving Wing members on. I've done Denny Sywell. I've done Lawrence Juba, the nicest man in Beatles podcasting. I've spoken to Steve Holly and his wife on Facebook, but to no avail. I mean, Jeff Britton will do anything for a $5, so I'm not in a rush to get him on. But me and Danny Lane are from the same city here in the UK.
That's right. He's a Brummie. Yeah,
we're both from Birmingham. We can both talk about Bovril and Digbuff and Wolverhampton. Stuff that will hopefully touch his heart a little bit. But I've always had a soft spot for Denny Lane's songs as well. As you know, No Words has ended over 200 episodes of the podcast because it's low-key the best song on Band on the Run.
It's a great song. Yep.
Oh, it's so good.
Always loved that song. Yep.
Yeah. Sadly, though, due to some of the behind-the-scenes fuckery in the Beatles podcasting world that I will not go into in detail on air, Denny has become even more reclusive than usual and is now declining any podcast appearances. So to say that I'm bitter is an understatement, really. Maybe I'll send Denny some money that he can keep because he's a tax exile in the UK now. Hopefully,
because he's great and he still tours in America, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
And like he'll play with Lawrence and Steve and all the other surviving members of Wings. And Paul, if you could do one Wings reunion show for the laugh, that'd be really fun.
Wouldn't it be good? How good would that be?
I could do vocals about as good as Linda, so I could do it,
But can you play the keyboard as well?
Definitely not. But I can sing brown rice, vinegar, sugar, macaroni.
Cook to the house.
You're hired. You're
Cook of
hired.
the House is in the McCartney lyrics book. That is
Is it?
hilarious.
Alright,
That's
okay.
so funny. I'm like, Paul, don't be facetious. You're including that song to talk about Linda and Wings. We get it. Just don't act like you were gagging to talk about the lyrics, please.
Yeah.
So that must have been your method of, obviously tracking down these guys to appear on the podcast. A bit of a kind of Sherlock Holmes type work to get in touch with them.
Well, sometimes people just have their own website, and you do the contact me segment. That really works. Facebook is another one where you kind of find their friends and family and then track them down through lists like that. That's a bit more of a private dick sort of method. A lot of it is just emails. Other good ways are LinkedIn. Finding people on LinkedIn is very handy. IMDb Pro is very helpful as well. If you pay for IMDb Pro, it gives you all the contact information and of their management and stuff like that. Especially on the Tom Waits podcast, I got to speak to several people who had photographed and played with Waits, and that was very useful indeed. Including the guy who he did a couple of album covers for Waits and a few photo shoots, but he was also the guy who did the photo of OJ on Time magazine, the one that was the one where they darkened his skin and made him look particularly evil. I was like, oh my god, I'm talking to that guy, and it was just because I found his Instagram. That was literally it,
Very cool. So in effect, become a stalker.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Become stalker, get guess. This is good.
Yeah.
This is good.
And no means yes, definitely. Is,
right.
Perseverance.
How many emails I fucking sent to Michael Lindsay Hogg? Like, come on, dude, you're the man of the moment. Come on my show, please. I will say, I say without any irony that Let It Be 1970 is my favorite of the 5 original Beatles movies.
Right.
I like it too.
Yeah,
I agree.
Whatever you want me to play, Paul.
I'll play it
if it makes you happy.
I know.
Like Ringo playing Octopus's Garden, stuff
on the
like
piano.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool, that movie. And well, actually, that I'm sure that might bring you on to another question.
It might actually, yes,
shortly,
later on. Yes, it might. When you think back, because obviously you're saying you've been doing it for the podcast, Paul or Nothing, for half a decade now. Do you have a favorite episode that you did, and if you did, why is it your favorite?
Well, one of my favorite things to do on the show is to compare myself to McCartney in ever more tangential ways. But rather like McCartney, it's always either the last episode, the one I'm currently working on, or the one that I'm about to do is McCartney 3 is my most favorite album.
Liar.
Yeah.
It's the new baby that's the favorite one.
Yeah. I mean, I am very proud of my more recent output, because I do think not only is the show an experiment in doing a podcast on someone you have no real expertise on, but it's also an experiment in doing a podcast solo on a micro budget. And the episodes have been getting better and better and more detailed. And it's gotten to the point where I do episodes where I revisit old albums and listen to them, the Listen with Sam side series, where I can basically update my opinions on the songs as I listen to it. But I have made my peace with the fact that once I've done the McCartney 3 proper album review episode, and I've done every gig and every movie clip and music video, that I probably will go back and redo it all the way up to probably
Ram.
Back to the Egg. Like I'll probably redo the whole early and Wings era, just because they weren't as much of a deep dive as I did. I mean, like, well, bringing that back, probably the Tug of War episode is the one that I'm probably most proud of. It's one of my more ambitious episodes. There's a part in it where I remix Mother and Strawberry Fields Forever with the audio of Len's death being announced, and I was like, I thought that was really cool, like with the bell being tolled and stuff like that. I still think about that. I'm like, why don't I do that kind of stuff more? But in terms of like research, Flowers in the Dirt onwards, along with Off the Ground, I'm very impressed with my notes for there. I put my notes up on my Patreon, and I'm very glad that someone, say if I was to be shuffled off this mortal coil, you literally could go back and word for word recreate Paul or Nothing with a much more charismatic host.
So we can look forward to the remake in 40 years.
The Paul or Nothing archive edition. Yeah.
That's right. Do you think as well, because I know you said you really liked Tug of War album and that was a really good podcast, do you think there's a connection between that was well received at the time as well, and maybe you see that podcast in similar light?
Well, what the fact that the album was well received, or the fact that the podcast was well received? Because
maybe both. Yeah, but you know how you like you said it's one of your favorite albums, and it was well liked at the time, and I wonder, because you knew that and then you were doing that podcast, I wonder if that created that good feeling when you were doing the podcast.
Oh no, I mean, not to bring the tone down. It was the first episode I did after my dad died, and I just wanted to kind of pull myself up by my bootstraps a bit. And I mean, there's phase one of the show, which is before my friend Morris from the See Here podcast came on, and he was meant to come on and do Retro Speedway with me.
Yeah.
And I really prepped for that because he's a bit of a godfather for me, a bit of a guiding hand in the world of podcasting.
Yeah.
And then he had to back out at the last minute and ended up doing London Town with me. But then from then on, I kept up that same kind of ethos, and the show has grown and grown in its ambition and how much I want to cover. Like, you know, the Ram one, I kind of just talk about Ram and the breakup of the Beatles and stuff, but on the Off the Ground episode, I'm talking about like Linda's horse home movies and stuff, and like Linda's vegetarian ambitions, and Paul donating money to the Lipper Foundation, like stuff that's completely nothing to do with the album, but sets the story and sets the stage for my ill-informed, very narrowly viewed song reviews, you know.
And that's where you were at that time, I guess, you know, when you were doing Ram. And if you were to go back now, it'd be totally different, probably, you know.
Almost entirely, yeah. Especially with an album like Ram, it deserves a better stab at it, I think. And hey, content be content. You know what I'm saying, boys?
Yep.
And I think for me, Sam, as well, like you were talking about, obviously the sad passing of your father, but I think one of the things that I think endears you to podcast listeners is certainly for me was just you talking about, and amongst all that, talking about your personal experiences in life as well. And that kind of, I don't know, it kind of endeared you even more to people actually, because there's probably things people can identify with that kind of maybe you've talked about as well.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's all funny and laugh. Yeah,
I did an episode just explaining to people that I'd broken up with a girl, and I've been
that's right. Remember that?
And I've been too sad to do episodes, and I kind of want to have that personal connection with people, just because I feel like so many podcasts have this distance to them where you don't really know anything about the hosts, and then like sometimes they might like let slip something, and it's very McCartney-esque. Like, I don't want to be like Paul. I want to let you know if I once found a guy attractive when I was 14 or something. You know what I mean? I want to allow people to get into that. Like, I go on and on about how it's Linda's androgyny that I find most attractive. You know. I'd rather not be one of these guys who's like, here's my opinion on the song, goodbye everybody, you know. You know, as you know, my housekeeping segments sometimes are longer than the episodes themselves, because I will read out every fan mail that I get. And I'm kind of glad that the show isn't so big that I can't do that anymore. Like, there's a certain ceiling that I'm yet to burst through. And, you know, I am kind of bitter in some ways that you do get some Beatles podcasts that are made in London in professional studios and have editors and advertisers. And they appear on your Instagram feed and your Spotify adverts and stuff like that. But I am very proud that the show is just this little backyard, back garden, homemade McCartney 2-esque thing that I'm basically do in my spare time between working full time at a pub and watching far too many YouTube videos.
But that's what probably makes the podcast good, is that it isn't done in a big studio in London and professional people editing it and stuff, that it's done in your home, and it's
half the stuff would not make the edit either. This stuff would get cut. Oh my God, Sam, you've told that story before, but yeah, it's a good story.
Yeah, and I certainly know in terms of, I don't know if you noticed that in terms of your listeners went up, the figures went up in light of lockdown, but for me, and probably for Stephen as well, that I really got into a lot more podcasts during lockdown. And did you feel that had an impact on your listeners?
Yeah,
lockdown.
There was a huge boost, and around the release of each album, there's always a huge boost as well.
Yeah.
Like my McCartney 3 news segments, where I'm just updating people about all the articles and interviews. They're all in my top 10 most downloaded episodes, and they are some of my least interesting, I guess would be the honest way to put it. Like, they have the least information in them. And I am going to be a whore when the Let It Be documentaries come out. I'm gonna do it. I'm going to say goodbye to my friends for 3 days. I'm not going to play any Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm just going to be writing and putting down my thoughts and begging people on Facebook to come and talk about it with me, so I don't get bored. It's going to be a fun one. But yeah, definitely, whenever there's a new release or whenever there's some tragic pandemic that forces everyone to stay inside, there's always there's always an uptake. And that means I'm biased in 2 ways to have another lockdown this Christmas, because not only would I have more time off paid at the behest of Mr. Johnson, but also I'll be able to do more podcasting, because as my earliest fans will know, you could get 2 episodes a week, or you might get 1 every 6 months. Like I was more inconsistent than McCartney at some points, and now I'm really pushing to do the 1 every 1 week, 1 every 10 days or so. And it pains me to not be able to do 3.5 hour episodes every week. It really does. I like that. Most podcasts out there will put out an episode that's an hour and a half long, and then I just slap my dick on the table and it's like, yo, here's 3.5 hours on Pipes of Peace. Get ready, bitch. You know what I mean?
Bang for your buck.
Yeah. And like all my friends say, Sam, why don't you split up part 1 into part 1 and 1.5, or like make part 1 and 2? And I'm like, I could do that, but it would just be transparent. It would really just be obviously transparent that I'm just trying to get more downloads.
It would be like trying to make the White Album into a single album.
Yes.
It'd be the equivalent of that.
What fools would try and do that? I mean,
I will admit now that I was intending to do the Let It Be book, the Get Back book, Hey Grandude, Blackbird Singing, and the lyrics book all in 1 episode, and like I feel like Peter Jackson doing all 3 Lord of the Rings films at the same time. I was like, what was I thinking? So I did decide to split those up into individual episodes, even though I hate reading and I'm very poor at talking about books.
Yeah, the thing is, if you tried to do that in one episode, there's probably a lot of good stuff that you felt would have to be edited out just for time. So probably a good thing.
I've never edited for time, my friend. I've never edited for time. I mean, I come from the era of Joe Rogan podcasts, which is always minimum 3 hours. So I've always aimed to have something like that. I mean, I'm going to be appearing on a couple of episodes of Another Kind of Mind in December. And that was from about... We got 2 episodes out of about a 6-hour conversation. We went hard, and you will be able to tell by the end of part 2 that I am not only getting progressively drunker, but also just sleepy. I'm like, yeah, man, that's crazy. Woo, oh my God.
This is the part where you feel like your voice has been slowed down to half speed.
Yes, it's so Lennon,
And of course, Ram's your favourite McCartney album, is that right? It's maybe a hard question.
You guys must know that very few people could answer that question with any sense of finality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were talking off air earlier. People's favourite McCartney albums tend to come from a particular point in their lives, and for me, the two McCartney albums I have memories of would be Egypt Station and McCartney 3. And they're not my favourite albums at all, but they're the ones that came out whilst I was a fan.
Yeah,
and I think it's easy enough to say that Ram is objectively the best. I'll definitely go on record saying that. But albums that I tend to listen to more and more of Paul's are the ephemera. Like I've probably listened to Thrillington more in the last year than I have Ram.
Really, right? Okay.
Yeah. I love listening to Paul's production on Denny Lane's Holidays. I love Three Imagined, all the kind of weird outside stuff. I'm really getting into the Fireman and Twin Freaks right now. That's really my jam. I love the Paul Anderson remixes of Off the Ground as well. Deliverance. Bum, 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 like all that really silly. I've taken a bunch of let's go dancing with Nancy Cheval kind of music. Like Band on the Run's got a place in my heart, along with Wings Greatest, because they're the two vinyls my dad gave me, which kind
That's
of
right. Remember you said that? Yeah,
set me off on this crazy journey. I've got a huge amount of affection for Pipes of Peace as well, because I just love an underdog story. I don't like anyone who's been kicked around no more. That's another little reference. It's too hard to say. Like, I mean, Wildlife, that is a song. Sorry, that is an album that takes me back to a very particular point in my life. Back when I was doing door-to-door charity fundraising and canvassing.
Oh wow!
It was a real hot summer. I remember walking through Nottingham, knocking on council estate doors. I had one earphone in, listening to "I Am Your Singer." Very special time in my life. I don't like hating on Red Rose Speedway, but it is probably one of the worst, along with something like Wings at the Speed of Sound. But I find it very hard to not be Ken Michaels in that situation where I'm like, I don't dislike any of that music, Sam. Because even the lesser McCartney albums are still chock-a-block with excellent Macca melodies, vocals, instrumental performances that make up my all-time favorite moments of his career. Like Red Rose Speedway isn't that good, but it's got Single Pigeon and a power cut. You know what I mean? Like two essential McCartney tracks.
Jumping back, Sam, you mentioned Egypt Station. Now, that's an album which really didn't do much for me. Are you in a similar boat with that album?
I know that you two could trim the fuck out of that album, definitely. It's one of those albums that, with time, my opinion has changed almost monthly on it, but the consistencies are still there. Dominoes is still top tier McCartney. Happy With You is still top tier McCartney. But there's an awful lot of mediocre and lesser mediocre stuff on it. Like, how many closing tracks does that album have? It's like 7, isn't it? It's like,
I think so.
Yeah. It feels like the end of Return of the King. It's like, come on, when's this thing over? Come on.
Next year,
And then, like,
in Brazil.
Back in Brazil, there lived a girl dreaming of a future in a far, far better world. Just that little boop, 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 boop.
Yeah,
that's classic for me. I mean, I remember when I bought that album on vinyl at a HMV in Wolverhampton because it had been sold out in Birmingham at the time.
Oh, I remember you said that, in the podcast.
And I was cycling back, and it's a very specific route that I cycle from Wolverhampton back home, and I had a new girlfriend at the time, and Happy With You was very nostalgic for me then already. And Back in Brazil, Caesar Rock, these are all songs that immediately had an emotional reaction with me. And then, like, you had the singles that I really don't care for. I don't really care for I Don't Know. Who cares about Who Cares? Although my best friends are all kind of brilliant guitar players. They are true musicians. And I love just getting my dad's old Ibanez out and just playing the 2 chords to Come On To Me.
Yeah, that's right. He did that live, didn't he? On that, because we saw him in Glasgow at the same time. I think you saw him down.
You would have seen him a week or 2 before me, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, just before Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah. Thankfully, I got to see him do Wonderful Christmas Time because it was literally just before Christmas.
Yeah,
and
same here.
I had to sit through the fucking Ringo and Ronnie Wood version of Get Back, which was just a pain. It really was. Yeah. Like everyone was just so drunk, like very, very clearly drunk or imbibing on something else. It was like, oh, just put Abe back on the drums, guys. Come on.
Yeah, I know. We got to see Wonderful Christmas Time as well. But I think the set list for that was it was great because there were still a few surprises in there, like Junior's Farm.
Junior's Farm, Let 'Em In.
Let 'Em In, yeah. The postcode lottery song. Yeah.
I could have sworn I'd read the set list beforehand, but there were still times I was like, he's doing that. Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And obviously it was my first McCartney experience, and it was like, I'm not going to cry at Here Today or Blackbird. Cried at both. Nah. I'm not going to go wow at the fireworks for Live and Let Die. Totally went wow.
Oh, it was great.
And, I was screaming like one of those girls either at the Cavern or at Shea Stadium. And I asked a very friendly chap next to me to take a bunch of photos of me, and then I never got his phone number.
Oh no!
So there's some man who could be from here to Jaipur somewhere, and it just has pictures, probably very valuable pictures, knowing how much of a big deal I am in the new media world.
Oh yeah!
I mean, any day now, I'm going to be invited to MPL. Any day. Now.
Oh, the invites in the post. I'm quite sure.
I mean, I'm the only podcaster reviewing Grand Dude's Green fucking Submarine, so I better get an invite.
Oh yeah, well, exactly. Did Love of Kintyre get played at our show, Paul?
No, he did. That would be the time when he did Wonderful Christmas Time. That would be when he does Mull of Kintyre, because he plays it in obviously Scotland, Canada, Australia, and places like that. Yeah.
Okay.
But he played it in 2010, but he didn't play it 3 years ago. No.
That's where I'm getting mixed up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He certainly didn't do Girls' School.
Oh, another one of those songs that Americans think is the better track, and it's just like, oh,
that's
guys,
right.
You're wrong. You're just
wrong. That's right.
Sorry.
So, let's talk the archive collection. So, McCartney's been re-releasing his solo albums as part of the archive collection, and that obviously includes additional material. Which album would you like to see getting that treatment next?
Well, all the old fuddy-duddies are clamouring and foaming at the mouth for London Town or Back to the Egg to be the next box set, and those would be nice. Of course, those would be nice, but as someone who cannot afford an original vinyl copy of Off the Ground, because I think MPL pressed about 4 copies of it, and then just and then just never repressed it ever. I'd like an archive set for Off the Ground. I want to have Off the Ground, all the B-sides, the Steve Anderson remixes, all in Dolby 5.1 that I'll never listen to because I don't have the sound or hardware to do it. But that's if I'm talking about realistic stuff. If we're talking pure fantasy or pure double fantasy, maybe the Phil Ramone sessions,
yes,
Return to Pepperland being done properly, maybe even with further editing and dubs and overdub stuff like that.
Rupert singing a song.
Yeah, I mean, like only Paul could make a song called Lindiana awesome. That's insane. But the other one I'd like would be Paul to pull up his bootstraps, not his jockstrap, pull up his bootstraps, and that was a Freudian nipple slip.
Freudian slip there.
Yeah. But I want cold cuts and hot hits, or hot hits and cold cuts to be properly done.
I know, it'd be good, wouldn't it?
Because people aren't going to buy it. Paul, your fan, but Paul McCartney's like hardcore fan base is bigger than some people's entire ancillary fan bases. If you know what I mean, like Paul McCartney's hardcore fan base could outpace, say, all of Kasabian. You know what I mean. There's he has so many hardcore fans that the archive releases do get very high up in the charts and do knock off contemporary artists. And he's only got a few more years really, because the grey pound always shifts in terms of generations, and it's going to be other artists from, like, say, the 80s and 90s that are going to start getting on that re-release bandwagon. I'm not looking forward to when we get like the 50th anniversary of Oasis albums and stuff like that, but it will happen. It will happen. But hot hits and cold cuts, enough of us will buy it to make it worth your while, and you can release it in red, blue, pink, polka dot, kaleidoscope. We'll buy it, Paul. Like, I want to legally be able to listen to Return to Pepperland, not have to type it in on YouTube and ask a guy in a shady trench coat, have you got the Phil Ramone sessions, mate? Have you got the Phil Ramone sessions? I know.
It would be great, and I agree with you about the re-release of the albums that never really got a proper original vinyl release back in the day, as obviously CDs became became the dominant format. And for me, even just getting something like Flaming Pie, or I got Chaos and Creation in the backyard on a gold vinyl a couple of years back. Just brilliant to actually get these albums on vinyl, or the McCartney album on red vinyl when it was re-released. So it's great to get them re-released. But I think one of the ones that I would like would be a release of Give My Regards to Broad Street, because even the original vinyl release didn't include all the tracks because it was a single.
That's right,
wasn't there one like Elevator Music or something that wasn't included on there? Like it was only on the CD or the cassette or something.
No, there was Good Night, which was the Good Night.
Good Night Princess. That wasn't on the vinyl.
No, that was only on the CD, I think, or the cassette.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there was another song, and Eleanor's Dream wasn't on the vinyl either.
All right.
I think it is. I think it is.
There was something. Good Night Princess.
Was it maybe No More Lonely Nights play-out version? Was that?
There was a few things that never made the vinyl. Can't remember what it is.
The dance version I don't think it's on any version, is it? That's just a single.
No, it was on.
It was on the CD re-release from the 90s.
That got a re-release. Oh my god! Oh wow!
I know. So it's just it would be nice to get these in the full albums on proper vinyl. That's for sure.
And hey, if we're talking about things that are never going to happen, maybe just print some more copies of the archive re-releases. Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't a fan. I'm not paying £1,000 to some other fan just so he can get a profit. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's ridiculous. And put Holidays on the Wings over at the Speed of Sound box set. I'm sorry, Paul, if Denny Lane still owes you a £5, but just throw him a bone. You know what I mean? You produced it. You produced the album. Come on.
Yeah.
Stop dicking around.
Yeah, I know. It gets silly.
Do you know so I was just going to say the sad thing is that a lot of these things will probably not be released until that he passes away. Probably, a lot of the stuff that.
Yeah, like we're never going to get Reverse until he goes, and Mary and Stella kind of release it all. All these weird tracks that aren't even on things like Pizza and Fairy Tales. You've got to go on Momax Hidden Tracks Volume 1, 2, and 3 through 11 and 13. Where's the piano tape? Just put that on a vinyl. People would love that. Oh my god! Hearing Lunchbox Odd Socks with lyrics. Excuse me?
Yeah.
No one ever talks about that.
No, just to satisfy my curiosity with the vinyl release of Give My Regards to Broad Street, and it came back to me. So Bad wasn't on it.
So Bad? Oh my gosh.
It was not, no. Good Night Princess. I love that song.
Inside my
Classic falsetto.
Yeah,
I know.
Rick
That's a
goes,
shame.
I'm not going to redo all my drum tracks, but I will do the drum track that I did for So Mad.
I know.
I know that's right.
There we go. That's what I want. Let's get a proper vinyl re-release of that. Thank you very much. So I'm guessing, Sam, you watched McCartney 321, which was on Disney Plus here in the UK. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I did an episode of this with Dr. Duncan Driver from the One Sweet Dream podcast. He's a real OG of late, but yeah, I seem to catch myself going into every piece of McCartney media with this cynical, critical hat on, and then like 5 minutes in, I'm always just swept up by how much I just love the guy and love everything he does and says, and I just want more. It's got one of my favorite McCartney quotes where he's talking about chord progressions. He's like, so you do this note, boom, and then you do this note, boom, and then he starts playing Let It Be. And I'm like, wait, Paul, no, you don't just do that, and then you write Let It Be. You're also forgetting
Simples.
Yeah, you also you do this note, be one of the greatest songwriters of all time, and then you go into Let It Be. Like it was very, it was very pure McCartney in that sense, where I think he has a disease where he's physically unable to recognize how awesome he is. Like like, look, Paul, I know you have to be a little political and you can't toot your own horn, but I was kind of hoping for more of a, yeah, this is how I wrote this. Isn't this great? And you know, do I wish that he'd spent more time on solo and wing stuff, like in the recent McCartney the lyrics book? Yeah, but at least I got loads of McCartney too. And, you know, for what we get, as tried as it sounds, it was still magical. And Rick Rubin, perfect for the job. Like, not only has he got the critical and technical clout to keep up with Paul, but he's also this true fanboy avatar, just fawning over Paul the way we would. Like, it's when he's playing the bass for something, he goes, how does this exist? I'm like, that's so funny, Rick. That's so funny. And Paul looks at him like no one's ever said that to him before. I'm like, come on, Paul, you must know how good the bass line to your own songs are.
Yeah. Now, wouldn't it be a good choice to produce a Paul solo album?
Kanye West would be my number one choice, but I don't want to be too controversial on it.
Ooh, Kanye West? Well, explain why. You've got to tell us why.
Well, because Kanye's 3 best songs in the past 5 years have all been the ones that he's done with Paul. So I think they are a really good team together. You've got All Day, 4 or 5 Seconds, which Paul even does live now, solo. Sure. And then you've got Only One, which is Kanye's own song about the death of his mother. And it's perfect that Paul would help him write that and play the keys on that. It's so quiet and unlike anything Kanye has done in recent years. And sadly, Kanye's last couple of albums have been quite crap. And I kind of wish he would just return to producing. Donda was overblown and kind of all over the place. And then Jesus is King is just, oh please no. I mean, I got out of a Catholic school and I got out of going to church. I don't want to have to go back to it with my favorite hip hop artist. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, let's go to the Church of the Beatles now and talk about the recent Let It Be re-release. And what did you think of that?
It was both perfect and lackluster at the same time. I mean, got to be clear with my biases. It was the very first box set, either archive or 50th anniversary release that I've ever been able to purchase, thanks to my wonderful aforementioned Patreon patrons. And so any review is going to be skewed towards the positive because, like, I just like holding it and cuddling up in bed with it, like Gollum and the Ring. My precious. But, you know, there should have been more of a focus on original songs like There You Go, Eddie or Susie Parker, as opposed to countless other takes of The Long and Winding Road, especially since the Glyn Johns disc is already kind of that to begin with, which makes a lot of the alternate takes kind of redundant. I don't pay MPL or Apple to hear interview chitter chat. That's what I'm going to watch the documentary for, which that kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. But once I'd released my episode on it and I kind of just got to listen to it and just enjoy it, I did just do that. I did just enjoy it, and it really is a fun release. Stuff like Maggie May going into I Fancy Me Chances With You is literally in my Spotify top 10 most played at the moment. I love that. I love that track. I mean, are you two in possession of an ear that's able to pick up on minor differences between mixes? Because me, I just hear the original album. Like, yeah, you know, you can hear maybe a guitar being brought up slightly more in the mix. But I kind of wish that they were able to do something like the Sgt. Pepper 53 release, where it was almost a different album in some places, and certain tracks on the White Album one you could really hear a difference. But with this and the Abbey Road one, I feel like it's just Giles Martin trying to move a knob as minorly as possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you on that. I think with the last couple, there doesn't appear to have been such a dramatic shift in the sound there. Although I think for me, it was just little things like maybe at the end of songs, little chitter chatter, and you think, oh, I couldn't hear that clearly before what they were actually saying. So it was just little things like that, but there was nothing too earth-shattering about it. But it was obviously a really good, clear mix.
I thought it was funny that they extended Dig It, but only by like 2.5 minutes. It's like, guys, we know there's a 14-minute take out there. Come on. And like, yeah, you're not going to put it on the vinyl, but hey, wouldn't that be a brilliant Spotify exclusive?
Yeah.
Same with the Full Helter Skelter. The Full Helter Skelter exclusively on Spotify, yeah.
I know. But the thing for me with the likes of Let It Be is that is one of the Beatles albums which is considered one of the lesser ones. But actually, when you revisit it, you think, why?
It's one of my favourites, actually. I think it's really good. I mean, it's kind of not seen that way by a lot of Beatles fans.
Thank God Phil Spector had the wherewithal to not put Let It Be and The Long and Winding Road next to each other at the end of the album.
Yes.
What a ridiculously stupid move that would be. Because not only are they my two least favourite songs on the album, but...
Really?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Long and Winding Road is not a very good song in my opinion. I find it quite dull. But like, it's just because I prefer the rock element of it. Like... My best friend Tom, shout out to him and his podcast Alpha Metallica, but he hates the fact that my favorite track on that album is the one after 909. Like, it's simple, it's got a drum beat which is just it's just like B and G, I think, are the chords in the entire track. And Come On Baby, Don't Be Cold as Ice might be the clunkiest lyric ever written, but that's why I love it. It's like that kind of energy is what I kind of wanted, and it was
a bit Elvis-y, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, I kind of wanted to have more of, you know, like the Get Back Fast version. Where was that? Where was the No Pakistanis version? Where's Commonwealth? Is this all Is this all just Disney going, look, guys, we really can't have this on our platform? And maybe. Even if you have 25 minutes of Peter Jackson going, now listen, guys, this is Paul trying to lambast the political attitudes at the time in this modern clickbait article. Got to be first with the news story world. It's just not going to go down well, is it? You know,
no.
Cancel the Beatles.
I know, too late. Well, let's stick with the Get Back. Now, I think that's really promoted more surely as a documentary now rather than a movie, since it's been split into 3 parts. But it's coming out very, very shortly on the Disney Plus. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it on the Disney Plus platform. So what are you looking forward to seeing, or what do you hope to see, Sam, in the documentary?
Well, very much like that Japanese soldier who held out, even though the Japanese government had told him that World War II ended 40 years ago. I'm still one of these guys who's like, no, this is just shameless course correction and whitewashing of the sessions to clean it up for modern audiences. I am so cynical and negative going into this. I'm of course I'm looking forward to it, but I'm just going to be there going, oh, I knew they wouldn't include Commonwealth. Oh, I knew they wouldn't include that spat between John and Paul. I bet they won't even have the George and Paul, I'll play whatever you want me to play clip.
I won't play at all.
Yeah, like I wouldn't be surprised if they don't include that. I really wouldn't. And, you know, okay, look, in terms of me not being just a negative, boring arse, I am interested to see what didn't make it onto the 50th box set and is in the movie, of course, who isn't looking forward to the entire rooftop concert unbroken and edited properly. I've also heard that there's going to be swearing in it, which is a first for the Disney Plus format. And
Mhm.
they've even used clips from before and after the Let It Be sessions to help tell the story. So
Mm.
I reckon we're going to get a lot of Abbey Road explanations and stuff, because obviously so much of the Abbey Road album was born during the Let It Be / Get Back
Yeah.
sessions.
Yeah.
So it's the expanse and the ambition that I'm looking forward to, because low key, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is my favorite series of films probably ever. Me and my best friends, we gather once a year to roast a pork joint and make bread and drink lots of ales together, and we will watch all three of them in a day. And I've watched Peter Jackson's career ever since those movies.
Mhm.
I'm a King Kong apologist. I really love And They Shall Never Grow Old. We don't talk about The Lovely Bones, but whatever. So as a guy who went to film school and then never did anything with it, I'm mostly looking forward to this as a Peter Jackson directed movie, in the way that I went into Living in the Material World as a fan of Scorsese rather than a fan of George Harrison. Though if it's as half as good as Living in the Material World, I'll be very satisfied, because I watch that documentary probably 2-3 times a year and still cry in the first 5 minutes every time.
Yeah, I mean, picking up on the Peter Jackson thing, and the thing that I'm sure makes us all hopeful is the guy is, even just at a technical level, very much an advocate of using all the technology to make something as good, look good as it can be, and sound as good as it can be. So even just from the trailer that we've seen, it feels like something that we've always just seen as quite grainy is suddenly like a brand new thing that's been released this year. So even just to be able to see it in pristine quality and to hear the chat and the music and clear clarity, that's going to be something else.
The clothes look amazing.
They do, don't they?
And
Yeah.
what? They actually moved the camera during this movie. I didn't know that. Yeah, you know that shot where there's a bunch of glass bottles and vases, and you see all the Beatles being walked behind them. I'm like, why wasn't that included in the original movie?
It was all quite static in the original, wasn't it?
That Disney could really do some good here, and not only re-release the original Let It Be as a kind of bonus, but also like attempt to recreate the original Lindsay Hogg 3-hour cut as well.
Yeah, that would be
good. Yeah.
But they won't, and they're not going to release a DVD version of this either until the copyright runs out and Jackson gets to get it back. But COVID was expensive, I'm sure, for Mr. Jackson, and the man's got a mortgage to pay, folks. And the mouse wants what the mouse wants, and if they can afford to buy everything except the rights to Spider-Man, they were always going to get the Beatles. And I'd like this to be the start of Disney being the Beatles' home. I want Yellow Submarine, Hard Day's Night, Help, all to be on there. 100%.
Yep, Magical Mystery Tour. That would be great.
Okay.
We've got I Am the Walrus and Fool in the Hill. Come on.
John Lennon's films, The Fly, and
oh, you're all right there. Yeah, you're okay. You're all right there.
Anthology on Disney Plus would be nice.
Now, that is a good shout. Yeah, that is a good shout. Because has that ever been repeated?
Stop making me watch it illegally on YouTube. I mean, I was at a Beatles tribute night at my rival pub, because they actually do live music in spite of my best efforts.
Yeah.
And there was a raffle, and annoyingly, straight away, I could tell that there were other fans eyeing up the stuff that I was eyeing up. So the Sgt. Pepper 50th anniversary, first thing gone, like straight away. Like, okay, look, I'm not messing with casuals here that are going to go for the keychain. And then the Anthology DVD box set, second thing gone, and my heart just sank, and I was like, no.
I had that as well. I had that.
And then I had to go to the toilet really badly. So I gave my best friend, Danny, who knows nothing about the Beatles, my stub. I gave him my stub. I'm like, look, if this is called, you go out there and you go with your instincts and you just grab me anything. And my number did get called while I was in the toilet. And he managed to get me the Anthology CDs instead. And
Okay.
I was really chuffed with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good wee package.
Yeah. I mean, it's still annoying that George Harrison singing "Take Good Care of My Baby" is not on there, but you can't have everything.
Yeah, I know. And the thing I liked about and I had the CDs as well as the Duke Paul, I think you had the CDs.
Yeah, and the DVD box set as well.
Yeah, and if you put them all, I think the covers all segged,
They do,
merged together when you put them side by side, which was nice.
Yeah, they all make together like a picture.
The vinyl's the next big one though, like anthology on vinyl, all 28 discs or whatever it is.
Can you imagine? you'd be up and down off your seat, changing the sides non-stop for an entire day. We can dream. It'll happen at some point. Imagine how much that box set is going to cost. Release all 3 of them in a box set.
With new stuff as well. The Archive 50th. God, I was like, 2042 or 2043? Will that be? Oh, God.
And Amazon track. It's that to lift it into your house.
It'll probably be second only to the George Harrison crate.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the crate.
Did you get enough money, Danny? Did you get enough money?
A crate. I know. It was just such a strange thing to come up with.
I'm sure George Harrison was very happy that his album was turned into the commercial product that it was for $1,000. I'm sure he was very happy with that.
I know, yeah, living in the material world.
They had to cut down trees to make the crate. Did no one think about this?
Yeah, no. Oh, well, his son needed his bank balance topped up, so it's all good. So anyway, one final question for you, Sam. Where can our listeners get in touch with you?
I'll try and do this in one breath.
Go!
You can find the show on any podcasting platform by typing in Paul or Nothing or Paul McCartney Podcast. You can email me at paulmccartneypod@gmail.com. Follow me on the Twitter, which is @McCartneyPod. Type in Paul McCartney Podcast to find me on Instagram. And finally, go and check out my sister show, which I've neglected to mention, actually, Macca in Your Attic, where me and a guest go through 5 interesting items in their McCartney/Beatle collections exclusively on YouTube by typing in Macca in Your Attic. I'm guessing I'm probably going to end up having you guys on as well at some point.
We'd love to. We'd love to come on. Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to. Absolutely.
Check that out in the future, everyone.
And Macca in Your Attic. That sounds like a really good reality TV show.
Yeah, there's Lennon in the loft, Harrison in the garrison, and Ringo on the roof as well.
That's it. Yeah, I've got Paul McCartney in my attic. Yeah, I'll let him come down every so often for food. Get a walk in the garden, some fresh air. But
stop composing up there, Paul.
Oh, he keeps wanting to tell me this.
Young boy, you know.
He keeps wanting to tell me the same stories, scrambled eggs and stuff. That's why we put him back up there. It's the only way he stops.
No one knows, but he's terrified of Nancy and he hides in his loft. She's a very abusive woman, you know.
Oh, I know, a terrible lady.
But you have to put Heather back up there with him. Yeah. You have to have like a day in the loft.
A day in the loft.
A day in the loft.
A day in the life.
Heather.
A day in the loft. Yeah.
A day in the loft with Heather. There's a horror movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm going to throw in the additional question, Sam. Is there any kind of new music that you're currently listening to that you can recommend to our listeners?
You guys aren't under any impression that I listen to current music, are you? Because I really don't.
That's okay. I think my recommendations, I think, were pretty much Radiohead re-release, REM re-release, Beatles re-release.
I did give a cursory glance towards Taylor Swift's reissue of her Red album.
Red, yeah.
Mostly because I broke up with a redhead around the time of that album, and it's an album all about breakups. So
there we are. So a nice re-release to bring back wonderful memories.
Yes, to reopen painful red wounds.
Yeah, deep dagger.
Although I've always said, and I say this without any irony, I'm pretty sure I could pull Taylor Swift if I ever met her. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You'd love the opportunity to try, wouldn't you?
No, I just go, you're pretty.
And what's your name?
Have you ever heard of Paul or Nothing? I may have mentioned you in the McCartney 3 episode.
No, you would get the delight if she turned around. It's my favourite podcast.
No, I like 2 legs. No,
they suck. thanks again to Sam for joining us for that chat. And we actually ended up talking for that long. There were a huge number of subjects we've not included in this pod, so we're going to put out a bonus pod next week with some of that chat. So be prepared for conversations about James Bond, Jurassic Park, radio legend Ken Bruce, Squid Games, more Paul McCartney, and of course, what's Sam's favourite pizza. So, where can you contact us and keep in touch? Well, you can check out our website, which is www.trimmingmusicalfat.com. You can subscribe to the podcast to get exclusive bonus pods. So to be able to do that, go to anchor.fm/ttmf/subscribe. You can email us at trimthemusicalfat@gmail.com. You can tweet us, and our handle is Musical Trimming. You can join our Facebook group, and you can also check out our YouTube channel. So thanks for listening, and until next time, keep trimming.
I love it. I love it.